Hello everyone and welcome to the Green Man channel. Hope you're doing good and well. So this time on the channel, instead of doing a Dark Horse Disc episode with collaborators that I usually do, I'm doing something a bit different this week, partly because we don't have a Dark Horse Disc episode actually lined up on the Green Man this week, but also because I feel like, the more and more I'm doing these episodes, the more I'm realising that there are common themes to a lot of the albums that we're choosing. There are sometimes common reasons why a Dark Horse Disc is why it is an overlooked or underappreciated album. It feels like we're starting to find commonality, these things that keep happening, these reasons we keep discussing and think, oh yeah, that happened with that other album. We came to discuss why each record is getting the name or being called and hailed as a Dark Horse Disc. And sometimes the interesting thing I find with Dark Horse Discs is that the album may not necessarily have been a Dark Horse when it was originally released, but it sort of gathers Dark Horse momentum. It kind of gets less appreciated, it fades away from memory maybe over time, and it ends up becoming a Dark Horse. Or even it's the reverse of that. Maybe it was underrated or underappreciated when it released, but it's gathered momentum over time. So you have all these different things happening with these albums. But what I'm talking about in this video are the common reasons, the most common reasons that I've kind of thought of so far, or ones that stick out in my memory as what is the makeup or for a Dark Horse Disc. What's the precedence? What are the conditions to create the classic Dark Horse album? So I'm going to start here with a really common one, which I think is what I call Bleach Syndrome, or you could also call debut album syndrome. It's that first album that comes before the band really get any notoriety, before they really become popular. And of course, a couple of classic albums I'm just going to bring out on CD that fall into are Nirvana's Bleach. That's hence the name Bleach Syndrome that I'm giving this particular category of Dark Horse record, but also Epica's Phantom Agony is another example of this. And actually Paramore's All We Know Is Falling was a recent one we covered in Dark Horse Discs on the current series of albums which are essentially kind of forgotten about because they were the first by the band before they got really big. That is a very common, I feel quite a common Dark Horse Disc syndrome or condition. Now another one. I can see Brady will be pleased that, this album is actually an upcoming episode on the channel. We haven't actually done it yet, but it is sort of a middle-era syndrome album for me. Killswitch Engage Incarnate. So this one for me is another album actually, which I think is kind of middle-era now. It was always one I thought of as more recent, but Iron Maiden, we did this one a while back, A Matter of Life and Death, also kind of in the middle era, but sort of the third coming of the band, when Bruce rejoined Iron Maiden, it sort of falls into that era of Iron Maiden. But I think it's kind of also middle era. And what I mean by middle era is that sort of, the band may have had an era with peak popularity at its beginning or at its ends, more recently. And it's often the case, the primacy and recency effect, I don't know if you know what this is all about, but it's how we remember the more recent stuff and the earliest stuff. But the albums in the middle of a band's career, we tend to forget about. And that's kind of what I mean with albums like Incarnate and A Matter of Life and Death. I also think both of these albums, perhaps this one particularly, kind of went a bit under the radar of fans or was underrated by fans or underappreciated at the time. So there's also those elements, but I feel like, there's also an element of the next syndrome I'm about to talk about with both these albums, which is their post-heyday of the band. And by that I mean then that they're also, after the band sort of really kind of what are often thought of as the iconic eras of these kind of bands as well. So the third category, the third condition of Dark Horse Disc I'm talking about this time is post-heyday syndrome. The band are, maybe some fans would say and critics would say, they're past their peak now. They're not putting out their best material, nor are they ever going to put out their best material. However, in the case of this band, I disagree with that kind of sentiment and, the reasons why people drop off. When a band can still, late in their career, produce an album like this, we may indeed cover this one at some point on Dark Horse Disc, but it's not on the current roster. I will stress that. It's not on the current roster. But Lacuna Coil, Black Anima, I thought this was fantastic. Christina sounds immense on this record, as good as she ever has, I think, on here. Personally, the production's good. The songwriting is actually, I think, better than on a fair number of other Lacuna Coil recent records too. It's a fantastic record. Songs like Reckless, Venetian. But if we cover it maybe on Dark Horse Discs, I'll not say any more just in case. But it's a cracking record, and for me, it falls right into that category of post-heyday syndrome. Now, another next time we're going to talk about actually was the premiere, the first ever episode of Dark Horse Discs, and it's Metallica's Death Magnetic, and this is basically post-stinker syndrome. This is the term I'm coining for this particular kind of album, this particular kind of Dark Horse Disc, post-stinker syndrome. So in other words, the band released an album which actually fits the criteria of is it that bad, and then they come up trumps with the next record. And there's actually, this divides opinion a bit, I will admit that. But that's another criteria for Dark Horse albums. You know, they divide opinion. They have sometimes mixed reviews. I actually think this one, though, is, you know, it's a really good album to come back with after such a bad record, in my opinion. There are parts of St. Anger I quite enjoy, but, you know, most of it I don't. And it's a long sitting as well. It's over an hour, isn't it? Now, this is also a long record, but it has a better riffage in it. I think James sounds better on here. I also think Kirk introduces some pretty good solos onto this record too. It is tighter, I think a little bit more focused and urgent with songs like Suicide and Redemption, the instrumental. All Nightmare Long is, I mean, very loud. This album is very loud, right? But it's definitely Dark Horse material. I love this record, actually. It's one of my favourites. It's why it was the first ever episode of Dark Horse Discs. And last but by no means least, there is a really common reason for a Dark Horse album. And that is that the singer, perhaps an iconic singer, passes away or leaves the band. And you're left with a massive hole, a gaping hole that simply cannot be filled. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the next album is going to be trash. And in this case, it was quite the opposite. As I still think, to this day, I stand by the fact this is one of my all-time favourite albums. And it's also, I still think, one of the best albums of this band's career, despite it lacking Lane Staley. That is, of course, Alice in Chains Back His Way to Blue. Absolutely wonderful album, in my opinion. Full of the sort of spirit of Lane is around this record for me. Yes, he's not singing on it, but it's around this record with the combined performances of Jerry Cantrell and William Duval. It also boasts songs on here that are brilliantly performed and written and produced. Your Decision, come on, amazing song. When the Sun Rose Again, a short acoustic kind of haunting track, absolutely brilliant once again. Acid Bubble, heavy as anything, really hard hitting but brilliant. Take Her Out is catchy, memorable. Check My Brain again, catchy, memorable song. Really love that kind of drony, repetitive guitar riff. And then the title track, Back His Way to Blue, is beautiful with a wonderful piano melody on it. Private Hell. I mean, what more do you want? Honestly, like, the only thing missing from this record is quite literally Lane. Everything else about it is absolutely spot on, and it is a classic singer change syndrome, this one, I think. You also, of course, got that with Queensryche as well when Todd came in. I think Todd's first, all of his albums actually, I think, are all pretty good and fit sort of Dark Horse category, and for that reason, Condition Human, we haven't talked about that one yet. I'd also say The Verdict could be in the fourth series of Dark Horse Discs, maybe, for those of you out there who enjoy The Verdicts from Queensryche. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on what makes a Dark Horse album. Perhaps also those of you, because we collaborate so much, and many of you guys sub to my channel, sub to Chill Dude's channel, and vice versa. But also maybe there is a video to come for Is It That Bad? Although probably I would say, Hector will maybe want to take on that challenge rather than me, because he probably knows, he's done hundreds of Is It That Bad episodes, or over 100, I think. He'll be able to say the common reasons for an Is It That Bad record if you watch that series as well. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you think makes Dark Horse record. What makes it underappreciated? Why is it overlooked by fans and critics alike? Well, for now at least, from me, it is. Bye for now.